"Stand up and say it louder!" The man's voice boomed, echoing across the classroom. Every eye turned toward Jamal, a quiet black teenager clutching his notebook, his hands trembling. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just answering a question. But the millionaire guest speaker wasn't smiling. He leaned in, smirking, as if daring Jamal to fail. The room froze. Teachers, students, no one moved. And then came the words that cut through Jamal like a blade. "Boys like you never make it far." But what happened next? No one expected. Jamal was just 16, a soft-spoken kid who preferred sketching in his notebook over raising his hand in class. Teachers described him as bright but quiet, someone who thought deeply before he spoke. At home, his mother often reminded him, "Your voice matters, Jamal. Don't let anyone make you feel small." School wasn't always easy. Being one of the few black students at an elite private academy meant he carried an invisible weight. He noticed the stares when he walked into the cafeteria, the whispers when he scored higher than expected on a test. But Jamal had learned to brush it off. He wanted to focus on his future, college, art, maybe even architecture. That Friday morning felt ordinary enough. The halls buzzed with chatter about the special guest speaker, a wealthy businessman and school donor known for his flashy cars and bold opinions. Students whispered, "He's loaded. He's giving a big talk in English today." Jamal didn't think much of it. He slid into his desk, tucked near the window, and quietly opened his notebook. For him, this was just another lecture, another grown-up talking about success. But when the tall man in a sharp grey suit strode into the room, the energy shifted. His smile was wide, but there was something cold in his eyes. He scanned the class, pausing on Jamal a second too long. "Today," the man announced, "we're going to talk about winners and what separates them from the rest." Jamal's stomach tightened. He didn't know why, but something told him this wouldn't be just another lecture. At first, Jamal thought it would be a normal lecture. The millionaire, Mr. Whitman, paced the front of the classroom, his voice booming as he told stories of his hard work and earning every dollar. Some students leaned forward, hanging on his every word. Others scrolled quietly on their phones. But Jamal felt that stare again. Mr. Whitman's eyes lingered on him, as if he were waiting for something. "You," Whitman suddenly snapped, pointing toward Jamal. "Stand up. Tell me what success means to you." The room went silent. Jamal froze, his heart pounding. He hadn't volunteered. He wasn't prepared to be singled out. Still, he pushed his chair back slowly, trying to steady his voice. I think success is doing what you love," and Whitman cut him off with a sharp laugh. "Doing what you love." He turned to the rest of the class, smirking. "Hear that? He thinks success is a hobby." A few students chuckled nervously. Jamal's face flushed hot. Whitman wasn't done. He stepped closer, towering over him. "No, son. Success is about winning, crushing the competition. And let me tell you something. Boys like you don't make it far if you're soft." The words hit like a slap. Jamal tried to swallow the lump in his throat, his mother's voice echoing in his mind. Your voice matters. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but the weight of those stares pressed down harder than any desk ever could. "Say it louder," Whitman barked. "Tell the class your little dream again. Maybe they'll get a laugh out of it." Jamal's hands trembled. He glanced at his teacher, Ms. Alvarez, who sat stiff at her desk, lips pressed tightly together. For a moment, it seemed like she might intervene, but she stayed silent. So Jamal spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. "I want to design buildings one day, maybe be an architect." Whitman threw back his head and laughed. "An architect? Do you know how much math that takes? How much money it costs just to get through school? Let's be real, kids like you don't end up designing skyscrapers. You end up cleaning them." The class gasped. A couple of students exchanged uneasy glances. Others stared at their desks, too afraid to look up. Jamal felt the sting of humiliation crawl up his neck. His dream, something he rarely shared, had just been mocked in front of everyone. He wanted to sit down, to disappear, but Whitman wasn't finished. "See, class," "This is the problem," Whitman declared, gesturing toward Jamal as if he were a prop. "People who don't know their place, reaching for things they'll never have. And when they fail, they blame society. Remember this, success isn't handed out, and some folks just aren't cut out for it." Jamal clenched his fists at his sides. His throat burned, but he refused to cry. He told himself, "Don't let him see you break." And just when it seemed the moment couldn't get any worse, Whitman leaned down, his voice low enough for only Jamal to hear. "Sit down, boy." The word boy echoed like a curse. Jamal's chest tightened. He lowered himself back into his seat, eyes fixed on the desk, trying to steady his breathing as the class sat in stunned silence. But then a chair scraped against the floor. Someone was standing, and it wasn't Jamal. The scraping chair echoed like thunder in the silent room. Miss Alvarez stood, her face pale but her eyes blazing. "That's enough," she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Whitman blinked, startled. "Excuse me." "You heard me," she replied, stepping forward. "You don't get to humiliate a student in my classroom." The millionaire chuckled, shaking his head as if amused. "Humiliate? I'm teaching him reality. Kids like this need tough lessons. No one else will tell them the truth." Jamal's chest clenched tighter. His hands pressed against the desk, ready to sink further into his chair. But Ms. Alvarez's next words made him lift his head. "The truth?" she snapped. "The truth is you singled out a child. You mocked his dream because of the color of his skin. That's not teaching, that's cruelty." The class gasped. The air felt electric, every student frozen in place, waiting to see who would win this standoff. Whitman's smirk faltered. His voice rose louder, sharper. "Do you know who I am? I've donated more money to this school than you'll ever make in your lifetime. I built this program. I keep the lights on here. And you dare—" "Yes," she cut in, her voice steady, unwavering. "I dare. Because no amount of money gives you the right to strip a young man of his dignity." Jamal's eyes stung. For the first time all day, he didn't feel alone. Whitman turned back to him, sneering. "You think she can protect you? The world won't. You'll remember this one day, when you're standing on the outside looking in." But Ms. Alvarez stepped in front of Jamal, her body a shield. "And he'll also remember this, that someone stood up for him when you tried to tear him down." The room buzzed with a new energy. Phones were out now recording. The tide had shifted, and Whitman realized, for the first time, that he wasn't the one in control anymore. The video recording spread quickly. By that evening, parents, teachers, and even the school board had seen what happened in that classroom. The millionaire who thought his money gave him power was suddenly exposed, not as a mentor, but as a bully. Whitman didn't come back. His donations no longer shielded him from accountability. But more importantly, something shifted inside that school. For the first time, students whispered not about Jamal's quietness, but about his courage. Because even though he hadn't shouted back, his silence in the face of cruelty and the way Ms. Alvarez stood beside him spoke louder than any insult. At home, Jamal sat with his mother, replaying the moment in his mind. "He called me boy," Jamal said softly. His mother's hands tightened around his. "And you held your head high," she told him. "That's what matters. You know who you are. Don't let anyone take that from you." Jamal knew the sting of those words wouldn't disappear overnight. But he also knew he wasn't powerless. He had witnessed something stronger than Whitman's arrogance, the power of someone refusing to stay silent. And that's the larger truth here. Racism doesn't always look like shouting in the streets or slurs carved on walls. Sometimes it hides in classrooms, offices and boardrooms, dressed in suits and polished smiles, waiting to remind someone of their place. But silence allows it to grow, and courage, even from one voice, can stop it in its tracks. So ask yourself, when the moment comes, will you look away? Or will you stand, like Ms. Alvarez did, for the dignity of someone who needs it most? Because in that classroom, one teacher changed everything. And maybe in your world you can too. If this story moved you, share it, because voices like Jamal's deserve to be heard, and silence only lets injustice win.